Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper, and we begin today with the nationally deadly winter weather crippling the United States. The already fragile distribution of coronavirus vaccines taking a major hit from New York to Washington state. Desperately needed vaccine appointments have been canceled and shipments of doses delayed because of the weather. In Texas, the hardest hit perhaps, it's now the fourth straight day without power, heat, and water for hundreds of thousands of Texans struggling to survive as a deep freeze has paralyzed the Lone Star State. Days without warmth means Americans are seeking refuge at warming centers, inside their cars, even in a furniture store that has turned into a much-needed shelter for those without electricity. The conditions are so desperate, one family told CNN they are literally burning their daughter's toy blocks to keep warm. More than 13 million people are also facing disruptions to another basic necessity, water, and the freezing temperatures are expected to remain for days. 42 Americans that we know of have died because of the storm, 16 of them in Texas, though that number will assuredly rise. And while various lawmakers and community leaders have been doing everything they can to help Texans survive, to check in on each other, to find food, to find water, to find warmth and medical care, Texas Senator Ted Cruz has been an exception. He was spotted flying from Houston to Cancun, Mexico, with his family yesterday. After hours of being savagely criticized on social and news media, Cruz put out a statement this afternoon announcing that he is heading back to Houston. He blamed his trip on his daughters having the week off from school because of the storm and his desire to be a good dad. He's acting as if he was only going to accompany them, not as if this was a trip where he was planning on staying. Our reporters are covering all angles of the disaster that's unfolding now. We're going to begin with CNN's Nick Watt and the vaccine rollout that Dr. Fauci says has slowed to a grinding halt in some places.
We have 5 sites here in Essex County. Today, they are all closed down.
That's Newark, New Jersey. Similar scene down in Houston, Texas. Every county-run vaccination site is closed.
Vaccine shots will probably start again on Friday.
More than 2,000 vaccine sites are in areas with power outages, says FEMA. Vaccine delivery delays from North Carolina to California.
While it might not snow in San Diego, the snow is directly impacting San Diego.
Because snow has fallen on delivery hubs in Memphis and Louisville, Kentucky.
We're currently talking to the National Guard about, and they will do this, about going down to Kentucky and Tennessee, which is where this stuff is currently located, and bringing it back.
The pace of vaccination was picking up before the cold took hold, but average shots in arms every day just took a little dip.
We're just going to have to make up for it as soon as the weather lifts a bit, the ice melts, and we can get the trucks out and the people out.
Meantime, average daily COVID-19 case counts down 26% in just a week. Still high, but going down for now. The broader impact of all we've been through, still going through, drug overdose rates rose sharply when the pandemic hit, according to early CDC data, which also reports that U.S. life expectancy fell a full year, first half of 2020, falling even further for Latinx and Black Americans. Now, the sun is shining today in Los Angeles, but still the super vaccination site at Disneyland just closed, will stay closed through Monday because, due to bad weather elsewhere, the shipment of vaccines just did not arrive. Jake?
All right, Nick, thank you so much. All day across Texas, rolling blackouts have impacted some 400,000 customers, and the company that manages the Texas power grid says that this week's meltdown was seconds or minutes away from a catastrophic failure. But the power problem has now ruptured into a full-blown water problem, as CNN's Camila Bernal reports.
Guess what we came back to? Our whole apartment! Look at the... Y'all, I cannot believe this.
Anger boiling over as Texans endure more pain. Millions are now facing a new problem, major water disruptions. This woman's apartment in Dallas flooded.
And now we ain't got everything that we brought here. We don't have nothing, y'all.
Broken pipes, failing systems, piling onto the pain Texans have felt since Sunday, when plunging temperatures crippled their state's independent power grid, leaving millions without power and heat.
We're just left sitting in a cold, dark room in the middle of the night with a crying baby and an in pain wife, and that's what hurts the most. Is there's nothing we can really do besides sit and wait.
People trying to do all they can to stay warm, even burning a baby crib.
This is the only way you can stay warm because the power's out.
And this mother trying to keep her kids warm in the car.
It's horrible. We've been driving around during the day with the heater on in the car just to keep warm.
The water disruptions on top of everything.
It is too much to ask of anybody. People are angry and confused and frustrated, and I am too.
The cities of Austin and San Antonio issuing boil water notices Wednesday evening.
This is a dire place.
When millions were without power Tuesday night, Texas Governor Greg Abbott went on Fox News to score political points, blaming green energy sources, which account for a fraction of the state's power.
This shows how the Green New Deal would be a deadly deal for the United States of America.
Then walked back his comments the next day.
Every source of power that the state of Texas has been compromised.
At its peak, more than 3 million people were without power. The vast majority have had their power restored.
Thank you so much.
In Galveston, volunteers handing out water. And this scene at the South Padre Island Convention Center. Thousands of sea turtles rescued by volunteers, trying to keep them alive until warmer weather. But that may be days away. And people here want answers now.
I expect a full apology as to how this has been handled. And I expect some sort of solution so that this doesn't happen again.
And so many Texans feeling that way at the moment. And when we're talking about the next challenge, the water, and the 13 million people in this state affected by these issues, we're not just talking about a boil water notice. We're also talking about people that have no water at all. We've heard from Texans who are telling us that they're collecting the snow, putting it into buckets, bringing it inside their homes, trying to melt it, Jake, for later use.
All right, Camila, thank you so much for that report. Joining us now, the Democratic Mayor of Houston, Texas, Sylvester Turner. Mayor Turner, what's the situation in Houston right now, and when do you expect conditions to improve?
You know, things in the last 24 hours, Jake, have gotten better. Yesterday, for example, in the Houston region, we had about 1.3 million people without power. Today, that number is now under 40,000. So things have gotten much better. The system is still somewhat, I would say, unstable. In the last 24 hours, ERCOT has brought a lot of generation back onto the system. But we have to be very careful that, some of that generation may come off, and we may have to have a few rolling blackouts. But for right now, from 1.3 million yesterday without it, under 40,000 today. With regards to the water pressure, and all of these things are interconnected. The water pressure is starting to come back, although we are still a significant way from where we need to be. But for example, on the water pressure in the city of Houston yesterday, we were under what we call 20 PSI, and that's the magical number. As of right now, we've been holding at about 29. You need to be above 20 and really closer to 35. So the water pressure is starting to build. But again, we still need people to conserve power and to conserve water.
It's clear that the state was not prepared for this disaster, even though the storm was forecast a week ahead of time. What needs to be done to make sure this doesn't happen again?
It's ironic you asked the answer, and you are absolutely correct. In 2011, 2013, when I was in the legislature, I sat on the committee that oversees our electric utility system. I filed a bill that called for the Public Utility Commission to ensure that ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council, that they would have enough reserve generation to prevent blackouts. Ironically, that bill that I filed was not heard in committee. But in this case, recognizing that we were going to have a major winter storm coming to Texas, we should have had enough reserve power ahead of time. in order to be able to deal with the increased demand. And then the system needs to be weatherized, because what happened here, and I don't want anybody to blame this on renewables. Let's not do that, because we had natural gas plants that froze and had to come offline. Coal plants had to come offline. Windmill turbines froze. So the system does need to be weatherized to take into account these type of weather conditions. Lastly, when I talked to the head of ERCOT on yesterday morning, he acknowledged that the system that we have here in Texas is designed primarily for summer heat. It is not necessarily designed for winter storms and deep freeze elements like we have experienced these of the past 4 days. Things are changing. Climate change is real. And so you have to build a system that's more resilient and more sustainable regardless of the weather conditions.
As you know, many Americans were already struggling quite a bit because of the pandemic and the resulting economic crisis. One mother in McAllen, Texas, Sylvia Serta Salinas, talked to CNN about this last night. I want you to take a listen.
Okay.
Times were really tough. I wasn't working because of the pandemic. So financially, I mean, we don't have the options to go out and buy a generator or to purchase fast food even. So it's hard. It's tough.
What's your message, Mr. Mayor, to Texans such as Sylvia going through all of this extreme hardship right now?
I hear you and I feel you, and I feel your pain. There were a lot of Texans, a lot of Houstonians, even before this winter challenge, that were already living on the margins. Or they were living in homes that were already in need of repair and needed to be reconstructed. What this event has done, it has made it even more challenging for these families. Many of these families, for example, when the power went out, they didn't have the means, for example, to go to a hotel like thousands of people did. They didn't have the means. They didn't have the ability, for example, to just be in their homes and just bear that cold. And so many of them got in their cars and tried to warm up in that means. And even in those cases, many of them ran the risk of life-threatening situations, because some have died because of carbon monoxide. And now, for example, when the weather is improving, or when the power is now on, many homes are finding themselves where the pipes are bursting, and literally their ceilings are falling down. And they don't have insurance, or they don't have the financial means to make the repairs. They were already stressed out and on the margins because they may have lost their jobs, but now their situation is even worse. So I clearly understand and empathize with her situation.
Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, thank you so much. We're all thinking about our friends and family in Texas right now. Our thoughts, prayers, and all support going to the Lone Star State right now. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thanks, Jake.
And you can check out CNN.com Impact to find out how you can help Texans in need. Coming up, why the timeline for everyone getting a coronavirus vaccine keeps moving and what that means for you. And she survived a 9-month nightmare, tortured and raped in a detention camp because of her religion. Now she's sharing her story with CNN. That's coming up. Stay with us.
Hiring new employees takes a lot of patience. Just finding the right candidates is time-consuming. And quickly filling open positions is an important factor in keeping your business moving. Indeed is the only job site that can move as fast as you do. Indeed.com is the hiring site that helps you find quality candidates with Indeed Instant Match. Indeed searches through the millions of resumes in their database to help show you great candidates instantly. Unlike some hiring sites, Indeed gives you full control and payment flexibility, delivering a quality shortlist faster. With Indeed, there are no long-term contracts. You can pause your account at any time, and you only pay for what you need. And Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. Want your quality shortlist fast? You need Indeed. Right now, get a free $75 credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Tapper. That's Indeed.com/Tapper. Offer valid through March 31st. Terms and conditions apply.
In our health lead today, the life expectancy in the U.S. dropped a full year in the first half of 2020, according to new data from the Centers for Disease Control. U.S. life expectancy now at 77.8 years. That's the lowest it's been since 2006. Experts say this decline has much to do with the ongoing pandemic. CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, joins us now. Sanjay, how big a deal is this drop of a